Supplementing with ox bile can be extremely beneficial for some people. Like there's a lot of benefits that can come from supplementing with bile or purified bile salts. Like it can help you digest all of your food better, and I'm going to explain why that is later in this video. It can help you better process dietary fats. Bile is what we use to emulsify or to break down the fats that we consume. And when those fats can't be broken down properly, they become toxic and rancid and can just be a burden that the body now has to figure out how to get rid of. So this is really important to be able to break down our fats. It also helps us assimilate fat-soluble vitamins. You kind of need those. It's a big deal. And supplementing with ox bile can even help to correct some chronic diarrhea issues. So there's a lot of benefits, but the thing is, your body already has the ability to do all of these things on its own when its bile function is working correctly. So when it's an option, we prefer to see someone correct their natural bile function. Like if your AC went out in your house, you wouldn't just keep dumping ice into a bucket and stick a fan in front of it to cool you down. You would fix the AC. So that's what we prefer to see people do. We prefer to see them fix their natural bile function when that's an option. So in this video, you're going to learn which people should be working to fix their natural bile function, which people should be supplementing with ox bile, and you're also going to learn about which scenarios is supplementing with ox bile a horrible idea. You're not going to want to miss the end of this video.
T.C. Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So in the comments below, let us know now if you've been supplementing with ox bile and if you've seen benefits or if you've seen any symptoms increase. Now, before we dig into this ox bile topic, we really need to understand what the body's doing with bile. So this is how it works. When we eat food, our stomach makes hydrochloric acid and it starts to acidify and break that food down. Now when the food is acidified, then it'll leave the stomach and go into the duodenum, which is the first 10 inches of the small intestine. And that's when the gallbladder squirts this bile down onto that acidic food that left the stomach. Now this bile is a soapy substance that's made by the liver and then it's stored in the gallbladder so it can be concentrated up to 18 times. So when it squirts down onto the acid product, this bile is very alkaline and it neutralizes those acids that came from the stomach. The stomach is made to hold those acids, but your intestinal tract is not. So that needs to be neutralized in order for the food to be assimilated correctly. Now one of the most important aspects of this alkaline bile is that when it hits this acid product and that alkaline meets the acid, it creates a sizzle. And this sizzle is what really busts that food apart and helps us pull all the nutrients out of that food. It's really huge. The next big thing it does is help us emulsify those dietary fats like we talked about so that we can use those fats and so that we can also assimilate fat-soluble vitamins. So all of that is really huge. Now, if a person has lost their gallbladder, then they don't have a place to store that bile, and that bile can't be squirted down onto the acid products leaving the stomach. So that's a really big problem and can create a whole world of symptoms, a very wide variety of symptoms. So if that's you, then supplementing with ox bile can be life-changing. It can bring about all those benefits that would come from proper bile flow. Now, if you've lost your gallbladder, it is possible that the liver's still producing bile and it's coming down the biliary duct and going into the intestinal tract, and it's just kind of flowing in there a little bit at a time, all the time. So that may help with the process of assimilating dietary fats and fat-soluble vitamins, but the reality is that you really want this bolus squirting down and meeting the food as it leaves the stomach, and that's the way the body really digests. So if you don't have that function, you may not have bile coming down at all. It's possible for that biliary duct to have gotten backed up just like your gallbladder got backed up. So we'll talk about some steps that can improve that towards the end of this video. But in any case, if you don't have your gallbladder, you'll not only want to supplement with ox bile, but you'll want to do that forever. That's kind of a thing that you'll just do indefinitely because you'll always want to supply the body with some bile that can help it digest food correctly. Now, here's why improving bile flow naturally is a much better option, if that is an option for you. Not only does the bile help us digest our food correctly, When the liver produces bile, it puts a lot of the toxins that it filters out of the body into that bile. And it does that because the bile goes through the intestinal tract and then those toxins can go out the back door. So it's a major exit strategy for toxins in the body. So what happens is with a lot of things in the world that we live in, we have the ability to thicken our bile so it doesn't flow correctly. It gets too thick and sticky so it won't come down and neutralize those acids leaving the stomach and help us digest all our food. But when it comes too thick and sticky, we're also not removing the toxins that the liver filtered out of the body. Now all those toxins get reabsorbed and the system becomes more toxic and the liver's like filtering out the same stuff all over again. It's like, hey, I just did this. Why you gotta make me do this all over again? So then it becomes overwhelmed and the liver isn't functioning as well, and then we get all the problems that go along with that. So proper bioflow is really important for a detoxification pathway. Now the second reason it's a better idea to improve your natural bile flow is because ox bile is very alkaline. Bile is an alkaline substance. It was not made to be in the stomach. It's made to hit the food after the food leaves the stomach. It's meant to come down from the gallbladder. So if you have to put in ox bile through the stomach, that alkaline ox bile is going to be neutralizing your stomach acid. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when supplementing with ox bile is they take an ox bile supplement with their food. Well, you just turned off your stomach acid. You just turned off your ability to fully digest that food. That's a problem. You don't want to do that. If you are someone who's lost their gallbladder and you need to take ox bile supplements, you need to take those away from food so that that alkaline substance can move through the stomach and into the intestinal tract while the food's not in there. Or we see success from a lot of people who allow their food to acidify in their stomach for a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours, and then they take the ox bile so that the ox bile can neutralize those acids as they move into the intestinal tract. You just don't want to take it with the food. It's a huge mistake that even supplement manufacturers make. They give us these digestive enzymes and things to help us break our food down better, but they put ox bile in there so that it's taken with the food, and it's kind of like driving with your foot slammed on the gas and slammed on the brake at the same time. If you've ever tried that, you know it doesn't work out so great. So by fixing your natural bile function, the bile can come down outside of the stomach. It doesn't have to go through the stomach and interrupt that digestive process. Now, there are people who are not producing enough bile, and then taking an ox bile supplement can not only benefit their digestive process, but taking ox bile can actually stimulate the liver to produce more bile. But the reality is that these people who aren't making enough bile are very rare. It's not something that we see very often. Much more common is to see someone whose bile has become too thick and sticky to flow correctly, and it needs help thinning it out so that it can move through the system. There's a lot of things in our environment that can thicken it up, and that's much more common than someone not producing enough bile. Now, there are some circumstances where it can be a horrible mistake to supplement with ox bile even if you have lost your gallbladder. And that is that if you're constipated, or you're burping, or you're bloating, or you're dealing with acid reflux issues. All of those issues are signs of a stomach that is not properly acidified. You're not having the ability to acidify that food correctly. Now, there can be other causes to issues like constipation and acid reflux, but for the most part, with these symptoms, the stomach is not acidifying correctly. So if a stomach is already not acidic enough to break the food down, and you put ox bile through there, it's going to alkalize it even more. So in these scenarios, it can be really important to help somebody fix those issues, and then they'll qualify to supplement with the ox bile. Now, the only scenario where you might want to use the ox bile right away is if someone's lost their gallbladder and they're dealing with chronic diarrhea issues. Now, I've seen other experts talk about how you don't want to use ox bile if you have diarrhea because bile is a very slippery, it's like a lubricant, and it kind of helps things move through the intestinal tract. And that's true, but the reality is that most chronic diarrhea issues are caused by poor bioflow. It's an inability to neutralize the acids that are coming out of the stomach, and then those acids are made to break down protein. Well, guess what your intestinal tract is made of? It's protein. So if you're getting that acid product starting to move through the intestinal tract without being neutralized by bile, it's going to burn up the intestinal tract. It's going to burn a hole in there. You're going to leak chicken nuggets all over your body. You don't want to do that. So the body says, we're not going to have this happen. Let's bring all the water here and we're going to rush this out of the system, and it comes shooting out the back door like a rocket and it lifts you off your toilet. So we don't want that to happen. So when those cases where that chronic diarrhea is being caused by a lack of bile flow, then supplementing with ox bile can correct that diarrhea issue. Now there are other causes of diarrhea, but when somebody's lost their gallbladder and they're having chronic diarrhea issues, it's really common that that is the cause. So when somebody's telling you that ox bile is going to fix constipation issues, it's because they're looking at the science behind that. They have never actually experienced having a client take that with constipation, because it's pretty much always going to make the situation worse. Now, if you have lost your gallbladder and you do need to supplement with ox bile, the timing and the dosage will be your biggest challenge, and you're very likely going to have to test and do some trial and error stuff and make some adjustments to figure out what's going to work for you. Because if you use too high of a dose, or you put that dose too close to consuming food, it's going to alkalize your ability to acidify your food. It's going to kind of turn that off, and you're going to be more bloated or more burping or more acid reflux, more constipated. All those symptoms that can come from a lack of stomach acid. And if you take too little or too far away from your food and you're dealing with chronic diarrhea issues, then you're going to have a hard time correcting that problem. So you're really going to have to adjust some things and kind of tweak some stuff. Now, we have a free online digestion course that has a full page of videos on helping you figure out the timing and the dosage, and we'll put the link to how to register for that course for free down below in the description. Now, if you're someone that just needs to improve their natural bile flow and you still have your gallbladder, then that course will also walk you through the process of figuring out if your bile is not flowing well and then the steps you can take to improve it. Just know that when you're looking to improve bile flow naturally, there are steps that you can take that can help, but there's also steps that you might need to stop. You might be doing things that are thickening up the bile, and if you don't stop those, you're going to have a hard time getting it to flow correctly. So that link in the description for the free digestion course will walk you through that process and help you figure out what steps are appropriate for you. But even right now, you can watch our video for 5 steps to improve bile flow, and that'll give you some more insights and things that you can do right away. I can't wait to hear about your results.